Okay, we're moving right along. We're trying to get through this Trimet board meeting. We left off at J.C. Veneta, and we'll pick it up at J.C. Veneta.
Question, working with our partners to communicate what's going on, I know in city projects, they coordinate work between the various disciplines, street, sewer, water. So you're not doing something to the street and then turning around a month later and opening it up again. Do we do that kind of coordination when we have these kinds of projects?
That's Director Prosser with a good question. Director Prosser was a former city manager. I believe he was tigered. He's got a $7,000 a month pension. There are two Trimet board members that were former city managers. One of them is Prosser, the other one is Warner. I think Warner was Beaverton, and he gets a $10,000 a month pension. I know that because I looked it up.
Actually have, I believe, 4 or 5 different jurisdictional partners who have been coordinating with Trimet during this shutdown, because there's a lot of them that would like to get in and do some work while the trains are not running. So we actually have Bureau of Environmental Services, which is doing some sewer line rehab work under our tracks, and they're working around the clock to try and get it.
Look at the way Veneta is looking at her.
Done as soon as possible and reduce any impacts to our trains as well as any citizens of the community. We're also working with Multnomah County. They're doing the Burnside Bridge rehab that requires a power down, so they're going to be taking care of that during the shutdown. And also we have ornamental light replacements throughout the city that the city of Portland is taking care of. They have people up in bucket trucks, so while the power's down.
And the Parks Bureau.
And the Parks Bureau.
With its Pioneer Square slab replacement and waterproofing work going on at the stations. Yeah.
So people are going to see a lot of activity. We're only a piece of that.
Correct.
And so that's something, you know, we might want to emphasize.
And too, with that though, too, with all of the construction and all of the impacts to traffic, it is really working with ODOT and PBOT to get the word out about those traffic impacts.
Okay.
Have you notified BGE Pacific?
I believe we have kind of a group that meets, and so they've been doing a lot of outreach for a lot of the different agencies in town.
They get nervous around bills.
I can understand why.
We do too.
I have a question. Can you assure us that if it rains the whole 3 weeks, you're going to be able to get it done?
Well, we do have some float time built into the construction schedule, like usual.
Excuse me, float time?
Float time meaning if everything doesn't go as perfect or as intended, there is a little bit of extra time in there built into the schedule so that we can still get it done within the disruption time that we had told everybody.
Is this going to be performed by our staff?
There's a few things that are going to be done with our staff. We are upgrading some signal components and signal cases down there at the terminus, but more importantly, Stacy and Whitbeck is going to be completing the actual work and the.
Yes, of course, it's Stacy and Whitbeck, of course.
Track replacement within the right-of-way.
Thanks. See no further questions. Thank you and good luck. We'll look forward to hearing how it's going. Actually, next time we meet, it'll be done, right? Right. Again, thanks to Sarah, JC, the whole team who have really pulled together a huge effort, as you can begin to see, and we're just beginning, so we know we've got a lot of work ahead of us. I'd also just note that there's a huge effort of volunteers going out to work with our riders as we normally do, so we're trying to get every non-union employee or even some of our union employees to join us as volunteers out there helping our riders. There's particularly important during the first few days. Frankly, after a few days, our regular riders sort of say, tell us to go away, but it's nonetheless important for the ramp up in a really big way. If I might, Mr. Board President, just bring a couple other short reports to your attention. One is I wanted to bring Doug Kelsey up, who can respond to our recent progress on the rail safety audit. And I think it also addresses one of the questions that was raised by Mr. Forrester during the public testimony period.
Great. Good morning and thank you. So firstly, I'll go through a few slides here, and happy to talk to the points that were raised by Mr. Forrester at the end.
Mr. Spit, Shine, Polish. He looks good. He talks good. He's your quintessential technocrat. Expelled from. Hey, somebody better check his immigration status. We know he's from Canada.
There we go.
And we do have a copy of the PowerPoint.
You have a copy, and for those in the audience and on the watching, should be on the back screen as well. So in terms of the safety audit performance, the importance, one of the microscope right now is the 0-6 month time frame. We're at, I would say, -2% at the net of where we're targeting to be. It's well within the tolerance of the activity, so pretty comfortable we'll still be able to achieve that through the very large, diverse committee's work, which also includes Mr. Forrester, which I think is bringing good value to us and good insights there as well. The 7 to 12 month period, we're lagging a bit. We're putting our focus on getting the 6 month. The important piece is getting the 6 month issues put in place from the previous report that you have in front of you. I'm not overly concerned about that because we'll pick that up once we finish up the 0 to 6 month period. And again, you can see we're really not spending time much on the 1 to 2 and 2+ years, knowing this is a fairly long venture, which includes some capital upgrades as well. So all in all, we've closed out 9 of the 11 items, so progressing pretty well. And as you'll see here shortly, just in back to the actual results, what do the outcomes look like? This is that's the activities. So let's move to outcomes. So if we look at the total rule violations chart that you can see now on the screen per million miles, we started some almost 6 months ago now when we concluded the audit, and how are we progressing? So we are down over just 58.9% in actual rule violations. This will ebb and flow a bit, but the overall trend, I think, is pretty substantial decrease in, frankly, a fairly short period of time. So, and that's a tribute to everybody.
Man, just to update you, or if you haven't been paying attention until now, I'm sure it's the same people watching this that watch everything else. There's about 20 people that actually watch these videos and actually care about this topic. Most people don't give a shit about any of this. They don't want to listen to this crap. Kelsey came in and, he got some buddy of his from the NTSB to do a safety audit, and they came out with a report that was condemning Trimet as being one of the most lackadaisical light rail agencies in the country. And thank God we haven't had a major disaster. That's his contention anyway. Although if you think about it, being an executive coming in brand new, what could you do to make yourself look good? You would attack the current practices as being, that's very brilliant if this is what he's thinking. I mean, I guess they didn't actually investigate the rule violations, but as I've told you before, I've seen the statistics for light rail accidents per mile, and Trimet was not anywhere out of the norm. Okay, so his contention is you're horrible over there, but the statistics that I saw don't back up his claims.
Including Anthony Forrester, the ATU, everybody's got a role in this. It doesn't make it easy, and particularly when we've got so many areas to look at, or I'll refer to it maybe as spokes on the wheel. Each spoke is an important piece, and the approach we're taking here is not to do A before we go to B, before we go to C, and stack them all on top of each other, because we'll be years in the making. It does have imperfections in it, and I do acknowledge that, but it does allow us to achieve those kind of results by attacking this on all kinds of spokes of the wheel that agree that we can, and they will meet in the middle, with the end result being the significant reduction that you're starting to see, with a lot more to come. So This is we do have a tick up here for March. It's a slight increase, but it is the second lowest one we've had in the last 6 months, even despite the slight increase. Again, you will see some ebb and flow on this, I suspect, over time. Signal rules, interesting one. So it's come down pretty substantially here, down by just under 49% as well. So these are the violations of the signals, where we've proceeded too quickly, perhaps, we kind of jumped the gun, but we have made progress in that. Yes, there's some discipline elements to this. We are running a railroad, and we're either compliant or we're not. And so this is not the only railroad in North America, so these are moving to a higher standard, which is expected, as the Mike Flanagan, the person who did the audit. This is just a basic standard, it's nothing special. So it's moving that culture up to that new standard called compliance with the law. And it is covered in training. Yes, there are new operators out there, and it does take time to get there, but we need to start somewhere, and that's where we're holding to what the law requires, and we'll manage the requirements to get there. So there'll be some imperfections getting there, but we have an obligation as an agency to provide safe transportation to the public, and that's exactly what we're doing. Door rules. So where people open doors when they maybe shouldn't be, or the wrong side, et cetera, et cetera. So that one is down over 8-fold since we started the process. So I would suggest the accumulation, the evidence would show that in fact we're making some pretty sizable progress on a whole lot of fronts in the.
I don't know. I mean, okay, they're down 8-fold from opening the doors on the wrong side of the train. I guess you can't really deny that. So what everybody was, I'm just trying to get in my mind clear, you know, everything he says is how bad Trimet was. If you listen to his whole presentation, God, we were just horrible. You know, I would have never known if he hadn't come along. I've never heard anybody say anything like this. There's been no complaints. I mean, the fatalities on the light rail here are the same as the fatalities on light rail everywhere. It's been nothing unusual. But his contention is, man, we were bad, and an 8-fold decrease in the door violations. That is pretty. That's pretty fantastic. I mean, what a light rail operator's not pay, what was the problem? I really want to know what was the problem. If he's right, what the hell was the problem?
Yes, and as another example, so we're started at 21.3 per million miles, down to somewhere around just under 3 right now for the month of March. So that's been a substantial change. Again, it will ebb and flow a bit, because we do have, as Mr. Ford knows, we have new people out there. There are going to be mistakes made. The goal is to catch them at the early high levels and help shape that culture. So there'll be continued training, reinforced training, and as Neil McFarland's indicated, there are more trainers to come. Can't get them here quick enough, including not just the human trainers, but we also need the technology, which is going to be about a year and a half away from the virtual reality type of simulator, and that's where folks can really go at their own pace over and over certain areas they want to work on the network. So we're focusing on the short term, but also trying to take a long-term lens on this as well to help shape the culture that we ultimately need to meet the responsibility of running a railroad. And happy to answer any questions you might have.
I mean, I just want to make a comment about everything he says is so bizarre, because Trimet Light Rail has been like a standard for the industry, okay? People would come to Portland to study the light rail in Portland, okay, and the Trimet Light Rail. As far as I knew, this was a gold standard light rail operation for the country. Now, this guy is telling us that we were actually horrible. I mean, this doesn't connect to me. You know, I'm somebody that's been paying attention to this material for 10 years. Okay, I've been paying attention to all of this over a somewhat extended period of time now. We're on to 10 years that I've been following this, and I follow this material daily, and I pay attention to what's happening. And, you know, all of a sudden to go from we're one of the most honored light rail systems and people come here to learn about light rail to, hey, we're not doing anything right, that's bizarre. Something doesn't check out in my mind about this guy and all of this, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not a professional, I'm just an observer, but what he's saying is so opposite of everything that has been said up until when he showed up.
Let's see if we got some questions. Yes?
Thank you, Doug, for that update. Just one quick question in regards to what you were just talking about and what was raised earlier. As we're looking at a situation like this, it's going to fall into two categories. It's going to fall in the accountability category and then also the training. I mean, meaning if we've got great accountability and great training, we've got a great program. I mean, it shows, that we're moving towards both of those things ultimately. But from your perspective, and I'm going to ask you to kind of take a guess at this, so it's nothing that's scientific, but as we look at this, how does our training program fit with the national picture? As you've just referenced it, we're not the only railroad in the country, so frankly, there are training programs out there that I'm sure are top of class and state of the art, but then what about the accountability side of it? How have we addressed that to ensure that once we do have all the training mechanisms in place, we also have the accountability and culture side to ensure that we're holding our teams accountable?
Yeah, that's one of the strange things about the United States public transportation is they coordinate all their activities at the very top levels. Like you see all these tax increases proposals from all the various jurisdictions. They all coordinate themselves together on this. It's a very high level of cooperation. But when it comes to the training programs, they all operate completely separately from each other. And you'd think that a light rail program would be standardized throughout the country. I mean, light rail is light rail. Doesn't matter where it is. It's all goddamn same. So let's hear his answer. I'm curious on what his answer is going to be.
Yeah, that's a great question. Maybe I'll try and approach this on a couple of fronts. Firstly, to the first part of your question, I would suggest we're revisiting our whole training program fundamentally. I think there's many great elements that are in our training program that are top of practice right now, but I do think personally there are some rewrites needed and some update and modernization. As part of that, so how do we know? We're actually going out checking with other agencies. What other practices are others doing? So we've, for example, been out speaking to Dallas, the DART system, if you will, RTD in Denver and others. So we do have some modernization of actual practices of training, and not only in this area, but we're actually looking at training on a more holistic basis on many, many other fronts. This one is a priority. But I think the other part is we need to also invest in more trainers, those independent, and we have to train the trainers. As a certified trainer myself, I think we've got to invest in more robustness in them, that team, to help deliver effective content at the product side. Feedback we do get is the training program is very effective today. So we solicit feedback as we're going through, but I think there's another gear here we need to get to. This will run parallel to the need to actually hold that standard. In the classes today, any rail operator knows you have what's called line of sight responsibilities. So no matter what anyone tells you to do, you have control, just like we do when we drive our own personal vehicles, of the terrain that's actually in front of us. And the rule book is pretty clear. It's not new to Trimet or new to railroading. So every operator on the scene has their own line of sight responsibilities in following the laws of the road or railroad, if you will. So that's pretty good, but there's the variations, I think, of so much terrain. I think that's an area where people do need support, and that's where those extra trainers will be, the coaching will be very helpful. We need to get the training to the trainers, in my mind, to more consistency of standard, for my own opinion. Technology will help support that. And with that will be the bar. Yes, that may involve more discipline in some cases for those who may not be fit. The goal is to try and help them be successful. We have many, many operators out there who are very, very good at what they do. But there is a group who does need support, and we also need to up that bar ourselves internally as a company. And then hopefully those lines will all merge to see the results that we're actually...
Okay, you heard what he said. He's got his eyes on a group of people that he wants out. Okay, one of them was Neil Berlin, as I talked about in a previous video. He's got his eyes on people that he doesn't think are up to the job. I don't know. I don't know. I've been listening to this guy for a while since he got here, and I don't know. I think my personal feeling is he's full of shit. Okay, he's a fast-talking, slick-looking, bureaucrat who's on a really effective technocratic bureaucrats will create problems to make themselves look good, and that's the feeling I get from his presentations. Is he's creating these problems in order to justify himself.
Getting to and maintain it, and I think we need to also intervene sooner, just like anyone would. I'm an old ex-athlete. The best way I got to develop was through the coaching, but not waiting too long to get the coaching. So I think when it comes together, I think we will see a very sustained product, and part of it will also be benchmarking ourselves against others. How are we doing? How do we learn and continue to learn, and including more interventions, more people out there as trainers actually, while not just the classroom time, because that's kind of the launch off period, that out in the field time will be really, really critical for us.
Thank you.
Sure.
The individuals that were referenced earlier in comment that operators were sent back to buses, and the absence of training being available or being, being available to them. Is there some, assuming that
This director is brand new, but she seems like she's trying to get engaged here. She seems like she's trying to figure out what's going on, and it's always good to see. I'm trying to get a handle on what the hell they're doing on the board.
the training isn't there? When the training becomes available, will those individuals be offered an opportunity to come back in through training to become light rail operators?
Yeah, so there's maybe 2 points to this. So there is, depending on the severity, in the probationary period, you have a few instances and then you automatically go back. That's in the probationary period. They can reapply. I think I may be incorrect, but I think it's a year from the time frame of when they were sent back. So there is a reapply period that's not forever necessarily. So we are also in, for example, in some of the testing, we envision, this actually comes out of the recommendations from Mike Flanagan's report, is we will also be overlaying a higher standard of pass-fail. On the safety critical items, we anticipate going to 100% pass. Other ones may be a little less so, a little more latitude in there, so one will be overlaying that standard. But once they're out there, there will be other inspections, from supervisors, from trainers as well, and some of that exists today, but it is, and I have seen it myself, where there's been inconsistency in some of the trainers, and that's a really important piece that we have got to get consistent on to help the operators and to help ourselves. So we've got to tighten that piece up in my mind, and I've actually seen inspection sheets that I've actually had pulled to try and understand the problem a little better. So that's one of the core areas for us.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Board President, perhaps continue.
After listening to this guy, I don't know why anybody would want to be a light rail. I know that light rail operators don't have to deal with the public. That's one of the major motivations for people to go to rail, is that you don't have to deal with the public anymore, and that's understandable. But I don't know why anybody would want to be a light rail operator after listening to this. I mean, you want to work for that guy? Hell no.
With a couple other reports. Again, thank you, Doug. You and the team are doing an amazing job in so many ways. Really, very grateful. If I can ask Dee Brookshire to come up for the quarterly finance report, and also Harry Supporter for your monthly update on our continuous improvement team related to operator assaults. And Dee, you're here first, so why don't you just take it away?
Okay. So, good morning again, President Warner and members of the board. This is going to be a little bit briefer report for our third quarter financials. This is 9 months of actual. So we're getting to the home stretch, but there's quite a number of expenditures that are yet to be made for the year. So I would start with talking about the financial highlights. Let me try this. Okay. Total revenue above budget by 0.8 of a million or 800,000. That's 2% difference, above 0.2% above budget. Total operating expenses are below budget by 14.5 million, or 4%. That's dispersed across all operating categories. Net results from operations are better than budget by 15.3 million.
You heard it right here. Trimet has $15 million sitting around that they didn't think they were going to have? There's $15 million. Where's the low-income pass? They said it's going to cost $11 million. They have $15 million sitting there. Where's the low-income pass? Well, it ain't going to be coming, is it?
On revenues, our payroll tax revenues are 0.5%, 500,000 above budget, or 0.2%. Grew 7.3 compared to same quarter last year. Our passenger revenue is 3.2 million lower than budget, 3.6%, and this occurred in both passenger and ticket revenue. Our operating grant revenues, we received 3.2 million so far this fiscal year. We're budgeted to receive 82 million in grant receipts for fiscal 2017. We're confident we will get it. We understand from the federal government that the payments will be made, but they expect they're going to be a little slower. So I was just at a conference this last weekend and conferring with some of our sister agencies. They're all experiencing the same slowdown.
Just so you know, the Congress passed the budget and all this money ended up being intact. All the Trump huff and puff about not participating in any of this, you know, just like everything else with him is huff and puff. You know, he's no different from Obama in terms of he lies. Obama lied. He lies. Bush lies. They all lie.
So on the expense side, system operating expenses 2.6% under budget, or 8.8 million. 1.6 million of that was in the operations, the core operations group. 2.1 million was in diesel fuel. Our operating project expenses for repair and maintenance to existing infrastructure, 5.6 million, or 41.1% under budget. It's a huge percentage, but it's a very small total dollar amount. And that's the end of my report. I'm happy to entertain any questions on any of this or anything in the larger report that you received in your board packet.